Hello there, Commonwealth from here, and we have reached May 5th. Maybe later if you're watching it, but that means we're less than a month away from June 5th, the start of Summer Game Fest. And around this time is also usually where we get a Nintendo Direct. Yes, June, and while some are saying that it could be already on June 3rd, so 2 days before Summer Game Fest, I would beg to differ. I think we're gonna have to wait maybe a little bit longer if it is June, but there is also hope for it, maybe being a little bit sooner, or at least, or indication of it being on the way by news this month. So be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and press the notification bell. We haven't had any general Nintendo Direct, that is to say a Nintendo Direct with Nintendo reveals, since September 12th last year. And in that time frame, that is to say at this point, around 7 months. And if we're gonna wait until June, we could very quickly end up with 8 months, which will be the longest gap we've had of a Nintendo Direct that had Nintendo reveals and announcements since the start of the Nintendo Directs. Or while we are finishing up everything that was tied to the Super Mario 40th anniversary with Yoshi's and the Mysterious Book this month in May, and a big question mark until we get to Splatoon Raiders in July. Because what is the June game? Rumors have been saying Star Fox. But if it's gonna be Star Fox, it needs to be revealed now in May, so that it at least has, a month or so to build up to that release. If it is Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, it needs to be also confirmed at this point, because you need to build up marketing. We have only seen one trailer of that game, that being in the previous General Nintendo Direct. And that's why everything seems to be building up towards this one blowout. But a lot of the content in that blowout depends on whether we see a new Star Fox revealed or not beforehand. Of course, plans for Nintendo can change and suddenly they decide, okay, Star Fox is going to come out in September and thus doesn't have to be revealed until a general Nintendo Direct in June. We also know that Nintendo is definitely not happy about what Nathan Haight did if what he said is true. Could the Direct then be in May? Could it be so that we get everything at once instead of this whole split up strategy that was highlighted by Nate, saying reveal of Star Fox first and then general Nintendo Direct? I wouldn't put that beyond Nintendo, because we have had Nintendo Directs in April. We saw that with the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct in 2025, but the thing is, the reason we didn't get a June Nintendo Direct last year in 2025 was it was right after the launch of the Nintendo Switch 2. And the only game that was really important for Nintendo to market at that point was Donkey Kong Bonanza, and that's why the June Direct ended up being just a Donkey Kong Bonanza game-specific Direct. But now the situation is completely different. We don't have any room for anything else. We know that Splatoon Raiders is a spin-off, it's not a mainline game. Making that just the June Direct would be underwhelming to say the least. Even though Splatoon is massive in Japan, I still think that not having a general Direct beyond June would really hurt Nintendo, especially with their annual shareholder meeting coming right after. The way I see this is that either we get this in May, sometime after Golden Week finishes, so after the week of this upload of course, or we end up getting it after Summer Game Fest in June. And the reason for this is that it all depends on Star Fox. If they want to reveal Star Fox individually and not let this be overshadowed by pretty much everything else, that is to say Zelda 40th anniversary, that is to say other anniversaries, even though we already had the celebration of Animal Crossing, but there are other franchises as well that have anniversaries, of course. We do have Metroid, we do have Pikmin. So a general Nintendo Direct in June after a Star Fox reveal makes sense in that regard. But why should we be certain then of a June Direct and then after the Summer Game Fest, as I'm suggesting? Well, the answer is quite simple. Nintendo has a history, even in the E3 days. They always were the final presentation to finish up right before the doors opened in Los Angeles. You have a list of this going on all the way back to the first E3 Nintendo Direct in 2013 to see this pattern where Nintendo always finishes last. They did the same thing in 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. Yes, even with the digital E3 in 2021, they were the final presentation. And why is that? They want the full attention. They want to be that big bombshell. If I am to pinpoint any dates in June, if we don't end up having a Nintendo Direct before Summer Game Fest in May, would be probably the week after the 11th, so around the 15th, 16th, 17th or 18th. Though we have seen Nintendo wants to distance themselves so that they're not even part of Summer Game Fest. That would point to something completely different, namely the week after. That is to say, around the 23rd, 24th or 25th of June, the very tail end of the month, and a month before the launch of Splatoon Raiders. This timing makes a lot of sense. If Ocarina of Time Remake is true and is revealed in this presentation, it will give months of marketing, months of celebrating Zelda's 40th anniversary, and also, if it is a year-long celebration, this way include the Zelda movie as a part of it. Say it starts from June and lasts until June, after the live-action The Legend of Zelda movie premieres in theaters worldwide. A general Nintendo Direct is really important, mainly for The Legend of Zelda fans, since every source we have heard of that has been willing to talk about this kind of subject matter has pointed straight out there's no new 3D Mario game coming in 2026. Definitely not by the end of the 40th anniversary, so September, and the same goes with the whole rumor thing about a new top-down Zelda in 2027. A middle point between Echoes of Wisdom and then the next open-air Zelda game, probably in 2029. So that would make a lot of sense, and then Ocarina of Time Remake being the 40th anniversary game in that situation. This is really what matters when it comes to having a summer or June Nintendo Direct, a general one, not a game-specific one. It is about delivering on what you need to have there, and that is The Legend of Zelda. We can't expect a new The Legend of Zelda game, we know that. Of course, a top-down Zelda game for the 40th anniversary would be amazing in the later half of this year, but with the hints pointing to that is soon as 2027, which also makes sense, seeing that Echoes of Wisdom came out in the second half of 2024, I just sit with the feeling that it has to be a remake, and it has to be a 3D Zelda game. Some are maybe still have hope for Twilight Princess. I still think that is not going to happen. It's going to be confirmed for GameCube, and then Ocarina of Time is going to be the signal from Nintendo that yes, we are not giving up on the 3D games outside of course, Nintendo Switch Online. And yes, we're going to be remaking them for the new age without all the system limitations that they originally had. And that is how you start. You start with Ocarina of Time Remake, then Majora's Mask, do the same, no longer 240p for these two games. Now it's an upscaled 4K and it's running in 60 frames per second. That is exactly what is needed for the future of The Legend of Zelda, and also to prevent these games to need another reiteration, because we already had sort of a remake/remaster on the 3DS. It's just that resolution is too low and it's limited to a small display. If you want to play it legally, that is not the ultimate way of playing the N64 Hero of Time classics. Plus, of course, you have the possibility of adding a maybe final Hero of Time game later on, and of course also do a proper remake of the Wind Waker, Twilight Princess with cut content, and in tune with the modern day based on the reception, which is hopefully going to be overwhelmingly positive for Ocarina of Time Remake and the other N64 Zelda, that being Majora's Mask. Looking at all the arguments, it's clear that we are due for a Nintendo Direct. One that has Nintendo reveals, announcements, and confirmations. And that includes the other 40th anniversary as well, namely Metroid. And I think after Metroid Dread and Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, having another 2D Metroid makes sense, because we haven't had any new game from Mercury Steam since 2021. That is 5 years ago this year, and we don't know what they've been working on. So I wouldn't put it beyond, no pun intended, that we could get a new 2D Metroid game. Apart from that, I don't think there's much else that really matches. We need, of course, confirmations for Days, for Fire Emblem, and we need the sports game that has been rumored, but that's obviously everything can be fit within one presentation. A lot of points that Pokemon Winds and Waves is not going to show up anymore in 2026, seeing that this game is probably late 2027. I wouldn't put it beside Nintendo that this could be the only Nintendo Direct we get in 2026. I know September is sacred and everything, but if the games aren't there and Nintendo doesn't want to reveal, say, a new 3D Mario, give us a tease of the next 3D Zelda yet, and Smash and other franchises, because obviously Smash could be the big mind-blowing announcement in a June Nintendo Direct, but that is my take on that we at least see a Nintendo Direct next month, and that there is still hope and the possibility of it going before Summer Game Fest, stealing the attention before the others have shown what they have to show. Well, what do you think about it? Do you think we are waiting until a June Nintendo Direct for any kind of major Nintendo announcements? Or will Nintendo bring some goodies before that in May? sound off in the comment section down below. If you haven't already, then be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press the notification bell. And last but not least, a big thanks to you for watching and to all our patreon.com/commonrealm patrons. Special shoutouts go to our heroes, Cheryl, Garrett Hoy, Holly Wolf and Kintaro. You rock, and please enjoy these awesome videos.